Welcome back to One Cup of Japan. This is a show where we have a conversation over something good that soothes you. I'm sorry that it's been quite a while. As I know good things to come, just before filming this, I'm sitting here on a bench in a park, and I knocked the coffee over, this can of coffee. And so there's like, maybe I lost about a fifth of it, which is really, really good, making me feel good. Some kind of like maintenance things, I suppose, to say. Again, want to say I'm sorry for taking so long to make a new video. I talked about it a little bit on Patreon last week, but basically what's been happening is I'm trying really, really hard to transition to a new job. But because of the sort of ongoing COVID problem, despite the fact that there's no big problem here in Fukui, a lot of companies here are feeling like a really, really big crunch because of the economic problem caused by COVID. That like my date for actually starting a new job just keeps getting pushed back and pushed back. And so that being said, I guess mostly professionally things are just sort of continuing as they had been. But the trouble is that I realized while I was being courted for this job that my Japanese is not really up to snuff. I can get through, I can get by, and I can do the job kind of thing, but it's just like, it's really difficult. And the reason for that is this idea of linguistic deskilling, right? And it's something I've noticed, or I've talked about before in regards to English. And the thing about English, of course, is that it's my mother tongue. There are people who debate about whether or not I speak what can be called English. My father tells me that if I want to learn Japanese, maybe I should first worry about English and go from there, kind of thing. But it's something I've noticed that's been happening in Japanese, which is a really weird thing, because as I've talked about before to you guys, as we sit here in this park, as I've talked about to you before, most of my daily life is now in Japanese, like probably like 85% in Japanese. Right, my work life, of course, is in English because it has to be, but everything else is in Japanese. And the weird thing about that is that somehow that has resulted in me having, not somehow, it's resulted in me having like a very sort of limited, in a way, breadth of language on which I can call upon. So like, for example, I can talk about Disney, right, and going to Disney and all that kind of thing, and I can talk really specifically about how to clean the house and cleaning products and that kind of thing, and I can get through like talking to the bank or like my phone company or whatever the case may be. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that my high level vocabulary and my ability to hold like high level conversation has decreased a lot from when I was just sort of on my own, and in my daily life was more in English, which is really, really weird. I think it's just because I was spending a lot more time looking at things that use that vocabulary because I wanted to study. So I just do like a lot of reading of like, newspaper articles about business or government and that kind of thing. And I just don't do it anymore. And that's something that I noticed when I was sort of being courted for this job and I was going through the steps, was like, okay, well, I'm here and I can get through, but it takes me time to kind of like recall the vocabulary, or I need to like find a workaround for the vocabulary, which people do all the time, right, in a second language, where they don't maybe know exactly the word of how to say something, so they'll just end up describing the thing so they can get through that way. But it's not the best thing, probably, if I'm going to be doing sort of logistic and translation work, interpreting work sort of professionally. I don't think it has the best look, kind of thing. So anyway, that's where all my time has been going, has just been trying to rebuild that which I've lost, by just sort of getting my daily Japanese, like my everyday Japanese, is quite good, I think, now. But yeah, that's sort of more specific, like business Japanese is not where it needs to be. So that's pretty much been like where all my time has been going. And so here we are. So now we're 5 minutes into the video. This is, of course, One Cup of Japan, and normally on these things, occasionally I guess we sit in my apartment and do these, but today we are just in a local park. We've been here before. Unfortunately, I am a little bit under the weather slash injured. The under the weather is because I live next to a rice field, and apparently I have a rice allergy. Every August when they harvest the rice crop, it kicks up like a lot of dander and pollen. Dander's not the right word, is it? But pollen and that kind of thing, and it renders me like super stuffy in the head for like weeks. So that's where we're at now, and I'm also have a nice pulled hammy. It seems like from a night run the other night. So anyway, we're not going to be doing too much moving. If you are interested, however, you can look across this park here and see a lovely toilet there marked with the letters TOILET, shaped like a tree. So that's exciting. The things I want to talk about today, yeah, let's talk. So one of the things that's been really interesting here, right, is interesting slash terrifying, I suppose, has been sort of viewing the difference in response and success with handling the COVID-19 problem. I don't really want to talk about that too much because I think I've made my feelings clear about where I stand on my home country's handling of it. But what's interesting is that I think maybe it's a couple months ago where it was originally released, but I saw it again yesterday where like there was like this poll that had asked a couple different countries, like the US and oh god, where were the other countries? I want to say like the UK, and then like one other country in Japan. Like if you get basically the goal of this poll of the study was to find whether which country was more likely to blame a person for getting COVID-19, like their personal actions, like blame them and say it was their fault, versus saying that it was just due to circumstances beyond their control kind of thing. Which country was the most likely to do each? And of course the United States had a very high outcome, basically saying that it's not their fault if they get sick, that kind of thing. And on the complete opposite side, like in like a landslide, you had Japan saying, at least the Japanese poll respondents saying that, like, to the tune of like, I don't know, like 75 or 80% or something like that, saying that it is your fault if you get sick with COVID, right? Which is a really interesting thing. Right, and I think it of course it speaks to the cultures and that kind of thing, and it's really weird, because like the US is like right, just past 200,000 deaths, or is just about to pass 200,000 deaths caused by COVID-19. Here, there's been nowhere near that number. There haven't even been 200,000 people with COVID-19. It's kind of a weird thing to say, I suppose. It's a matter of percentages and all that, but so it's sort of besides the point. But it speaks to. It's weird, right? Because like the United States, there's so many people who are actively not following guidelines that they should be to avoid it, thereby adding a layer of responsibility to them getting sick if they do get sick. Versus here, people taking responsibility, trying to do things to kind of avoid it. Not always, right? Like you can find pictures of people like masked up to like climb a mountain and that kind of thing, and people going to places and getting COVID, like hostess clubs and that kind of thing, among other places. But generally speaking, people seem to be much more willing to follow sensible guidelines here, and even so, the United States doesn't seem to think that it's their fault if they get sick. So strange. But the reason we're talking about this is last year about this time, it was a really shitty year personally last year for me around this time for a number of reasons. But last year I got sick like this. As I said, I get sick like this every year because of the allergies. And then I'd also had like some kind of neurological condition which caused me to have like blackouts and fainting like a couple times or more than a couple times a week kind of thing. But I remember at that time, just when I had first gotten like the allergies, like being told like, why do you get sick kind of thing, right? And and I was like, I'm sorry, I have an allergy kind of thing. But it was like, there was this pushback on me that was like, okay, well, clearly you're not taking care of yourself and you need to do better, that kind of thing. And then right around the time that COVID had started to be a problem here, I had like I think it was the switch over from when it started to change from like winter weather into spring weather kind of thing. And I'd gotten a cold at that time, as happens, you know, when the weather changes. And again, basically I was told by the powers that be, like in a very like direct way, like, why do you get sick, like, and why did you get sick now, right? Like being blamed for as though I chose to get a cold at the time that COVID was happening. And of course the fear at that time was that even though I just had a cold, that people would think I had COVID-19 and that they would all quit the school, and, you know, apocalypse and mayhem and, you know, exploding planets and stuff like that. And yeah, I just think it's really interesting. It's very, very telling, I think, this study. So it's something worth talking about, I think. So I don't know, you know, and I just think, yeah, it's really weird how people feel about getting sick, I think, sometimes. So so that's all I want to say about that, I suppose. But a note about this coffee, and just as a general rule, there's like a this is one thing I want to talk about, and the coffee will lead us nicely into this, is convenience culture, right? And of course, to a differing degree, in the United States, there is a convenience culture, right? And supported much more commonly by like takeout service or a delivery service, that kind of thing. Like even in my small hometown of Leroy, New York, for any of you who know where that is, like I could, you know, there's like, we could choose from like Chinese food, we could choose from like pizza, we could choose from, you know, Subway or McDonald's or whatever, but at the very least we could go do takeout, and, you know, in good situations, a number of situations, we could get delivery of pizzas and subs and things like that. And you know, when I went to college, the same thing, and after I got out of college, same thing kind of thing, right? Like there was no, when I needed something, it was easy to get it, kind of thing. But the difference in the convenience culture here is night and day, truly, right? Maybe I've said as much before, but from my apartment, if I walk, well, I don't usually walk, I suppose, but if I take my bicycle, literally like a minute and a half, yeah, literally a minute and a half in this direction, there's a Family Mart. And then maybe about the same, although there's a stoplight you have to stop at, in this direction there is a Lawson. And then if you were to keep going, so let's say from my house, let's say in a minute and a half distance from my house, right? And we'll use a clock here. At 3 o'clock there's a Family Mart. At 1 o'clock there's a Lawson. At let's say 10 o'clock, I suppose, 10 o'clock there's another Family Mart, and then at about 8 o'clock there's another Family Mart. So within, you know, it's not even a kilometer. From my place, I can get to 4 different convenience stores, right? And I mean, it's of course tied to the work culture and everything else like that, and how busy people are and that kind of thing. But also, it's just goddamn ridiculous, you know. And one thing you will commonly see there is, for example, like single men will often go to the convenience store and just buy like a bag full of stuff, and, you know, it's like for like a day or two worth of food, kind of thing, right? That's the thing that happens. But I think especially one of the things I've been noticing recently, as I've been trying to save money, as I'm really trying to save money for some future endeavors, which we shall talk about when they become more realistic, is how much convenience costs, right? And don't get me wrong, I knew about the, it's gonna make me sound terrible, but I always knew, and I still know about the cost of convenience in sort of like a general scale, right? Like my ability to have an iPhone, which is a convenience tool, right, is predicated on the fact that there are people who will give their labor cheaply, that kind of thing, right? Family Mart too is, Family Mart and other convenience stores like it, their existence is predicated on cheap labor, having like a streamlined supply chain and all that kind of thing. And anyway, all of this to say that there's a cost to convenience, right? Like it's probably bad for the environment. It's obviously there's some humanitarian issues at play there and that kind of thing. And so it's always good to try and balance convenience against to do what's convenient only when you need to, I think, as far as food and all that kind of stuff is concerned. But in a monetary sense, right? Just realizing how freaking tired I look. Good Christ. Well, it is what it is. But in a monetary sense, right? It's really quite crazy how much like convenience can cost you, right? Now, let's go back to our poor coffee here, who had a fifth of its glorious essence spilled all over the ground here. It's since soaked into the ground. I apologize for making the soil more acidic. It was not my intention. Right. So actually, this coffee brand I don't really care for. But it's super cheap. This was 75 yen for 350 milliliters or so. And maybe this is 500 milliliters. It doesn't matter. This is not the point. But I went purposely to the supermarket to buy it, even though it was a little bit out of the way, before coming here, because I knew that I could buy a can or like a large bottle of coffee for like under 100 yen kind of thing, right? But what made me notice this is that really quite close to my apartment there is a vending machine, right? If I walk, it takes me like 90 seconds to get there, right? Not even 90 seconds, I'm sure. And there's this coffee brand, Georgia, and there's like this bottled version of it that's called like Georgia. I don't know what it's called. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. But right recently, I go there in the morning or whatever, and it's 150 yen for a bottle, right? And first of all, I sat down and did the math of this, and I was like, if I'm spending 150 yen on a bottle of coffee a day, right? That's what? It's 750 yen a week, right? So 10. Oh, that's right. That's right. That's right. That's 750 yen a week, right? And then if you do that for a month, that's 3,000 yen a month that you're spending on bottled coffee, which is fucking stupid. It's stupid, right? Like, think about all you could do with 3,000 yen. And anyhow, I was like, oh, well, I'm gonna cut that out. Maybe I'll do it on Sundays as like, a little treat to myself, because I've been good during the week. And but anyhow, so this is a long story about coffee, but so anyway, last Sunday I go to the coffee machine, and it says sold out. And I'm super groggy this morning because, like, Saturday night I think I ran for like an hour and a half. And it was a beautiful run. It was a gorgeous night. But that morning my whole body hurt. The allergies were hitting in full force, and I just did not want to, like, beyond my fiance, I did not want to see anybody at all. It's just like, I didn't want to talk to anybody, so I was refusing to go to the convenience store. It was a time when already the supermarket would have been open, so I could have bought coffee really, really cheaply. But I was just like, oh God, I can't do it. So I noticed that the coffee is sold out here, and I remember that over by there's like an elementary school that's kind of close by. There's like across from that school is a baseball court. Baseball court. This deskilling I'm talking about. Baseball field. There's a bank of 3 vending machines run by this old guy who exists. and I remember, okay, that's there. So I go over there and I'm like, okay, do they have my coffee? This is my favorite brand of coffee. It's so smooth, so good. I just want some of it in me right now, kind of thing. And I get there and I look at the price. It's 170 yen. And mind you, from this other vending machine, it's like maybe like a minute by bicycle kind of thing. It's super close. And I'm like, okay, so there's some considerable like price gouging that's happening here. And I'm like, all right, well, maybe it's a little bit cheaper at the convenience store kind of thing. So I go to the convenience store and it's 140 yen or something like that. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm just gonna bite the bullet now, because I really you know, if you want like minimal human interaction, if there's no way to escape human interaction, go to a convenience store. And if you follow like Japanese like social rules, you just ignore the person who's dealing with you, and then you can get away with it, kind of thing. I don't, and I didn't, you know. I said my thank yous and all that kind of thing. But so anyway, all of this, like, to say that, like, okay, think about the prices here, right? It's 150 yen at the one place, it's 170 yen over here, and then if I go to the convenience store, it's 140 yen, right? But then if I just bother to go to the supermarket, it's like, you know, 90 cents for that bottle, 90 yen for that bottle, that kind of thing. And if you think about that, right, like, it's just like, I'm paying all of that money so that I, you know, and the thing is too, like, the supermarket is not that far, and if you think about it, if you plan ahead, like, if you plan ahead, right, and you buy like a big bottle of coffee, or better yet, you buy like ground up coffee beans, or you buy the beans and grind them yourself, whatever you want to do. Like, if you plan ahead, like, think about how much money you save, man. And it's like, you know, and this all may sound like it's about coffee, but I'm trying to point to kind of a larger, I don't want to say problem necessarily, but a larger sort of trend within the culture, which is this idea of convenience because something's a little bit kind of a pain in the ass. And you'll hear Japanese people say it all the time, is like, Japanese people are very like, is there, I don't even know if there's a simple of a word for it in English, but you would call somebody like mendokusagari. Mendokusai means like pain, something's a pain, or it's a hassle, or it's like mendokuse, it's like pain in the ass. And then if you add like gari on the end of something, it makes a noun that somebody's like always something. So mendokusagari means a person who is always feels like something's a hassle, right? Or you could say like that person's samugari, that means like they're always cold, that kind of thing. And right, perhaps on the coffee scale, right, and even on the coffee scale, like, it's a problem, right? Because if you think about like the bottles and the cans and everything else you're using that needs to be recycled and probably is not always recycled, and of course I'm obviously a contributing factor to this. It's a problem. But then if you scale it up to, oh God, what is his name? Wasabi Cars, I think. If you scale this up a little bit, he was talking about the other day on a video about how he had taken his car to the shop, and I don't remember the details, though they aren't important, but basically that the shop was like, okay, well, there's something wrong with your car, and rather than fix it, you should just buy a new car, right? Because it's a pain to get the parts, it's going to cost you money and time to get the parts and to get it fixed and everything like that, so just buy a new car. And it's something I hear a lot in my personal life, like particularly when like I have jeans that are just like, they're on the edge of life, right? And first of all, let's talk about jeans, because I don't care if it's old-fashioned, I don't care if it shows that I'm, you know, I'm out of date with the fashion trends. Not that I was ever in date with the fashion trends, but like, you know, your jeans get really comfortable, and probably at about that time they start to show some wear and tear. And I refuse to throw them away, but my partner's like, listen, you gotta get rid of those and just get like a new nice pair of jeans. I'm like, you don't understand, right? But there's also, there's a microcosm of like the culture battle that sometimes happens, right? It's like, okay, well, something is chipped, so let's just get a new one. I'm like, no, man, you can still drink from this. It's perfectly fine, you know? And without a doubt, some of that is it's not a cultural thing, like on a national level, like in the grand cultural sense of things. Maybe it's not entirely a cultural thing. It's a individualistic cultural thing, right? But generally speaking, that is something that is really, really common, is the idea of like, okay, if it's a little bit pain in the ass, let's just, even if it costs some money right now, let's just bite it in the ass and get rid of it and do the convenient thing. I don't know if it's good or it's bad. My feeling is probably it's not great, particularly for the environment, and probably not for low-wage workers and that kind of thing. So anyway, that's my rant about convenience. And again, as I'm drinking this, I'm clearly a hypocrite, though I'm trying to be less of one. So anyway, I think that's where we're going to end it today, guys. We have just a little bit left here. These should start coming out again a little bit more regularly, probably weekly again. I have been working, albeit just here and there, on the research episode for this season, and that will be out on schedule. And I'm gonna figure out a time when we can do a live stream, although that's probably a couple weeks out. And then I should be over on Simon Ochanama's channel next month for another live stream. Probably what we're going to do is, to make sure that I can get these out consistently, is I'm just gonna schedule like a day, like I was doing with the last season, where I filmed like 2 or 3 of these in a day. So what I'd really love for you guys to do is if you would let me know either on Twitter or Instagram or here in the comments. I will be responding to the comments. I apologize, I've not been great about that for the last couple of videos. Topics that you want me to talk about, questions that you have, anything like that. It doesn't need to be an AMA episode. It can be about something you've heard about, or something you want me to talk about that I haven't talked about, or something I have talked about that you'd like me to elaborate on. Whatever you want to do, because I want to make sure that these videos fill some kind of purpose for you other than just escapism, although that's perfectly fine too. And hopefully the next time around I will be healed up and we'll be walking around and seeing more than just this park, although this park is super lovely on a day such as today. So anyway, guys, as I finish our cuppa here, thanks as always for watching. I love your faces, and I'll see you all very soon indeed. Cheers.